So today's project is the rear bumper of the JK. As you can see, I've removed it here. This bumper is actually a hollow container. And a lot of people, including a couple of companies like Hydro Tank, make plugs and things to adapt this into a giant water tank. It holds about 8 gallons of water from what I understand. There are some things I was concerned about when I went to take it off, is I didn't understand how these attachment points actually affix to it. So the actual hardware has these threaded ends that bore into a cavity, but it's a sealed off cavity. So the water that's inside there won't actually touch this hardware, which was my fear, is that the water would be contaminated as I'm going to use it for my power washer that I have. So I can plug the power washer into it, and I'll show you that in a minute. But just so you know, the interior of this doesn't have any metal parts that poke into it. So there's no rust likeliness by any means, unless you enter it otherwise for the fixtures you put in. I've already mapped it out where I'm going to put these two entry points. One will be the hose top piece, which will be a spigot that comes out, or just a threaded 3/4 MPT. The other is, you can see this center hole there, and then there's those three, and what those will be this, which I've had forever now. It's a water fill, basically hardware or whatever. It's just the opening so you can unscrew this and pour water into the actual tank. Then this here will be the hose portion of it. This hose here will run down on the inside of the tank along the back, probably to the back corner, so it's at the lowest point, and that'll be my pickup line as it comes up to, watch, this caps off here is a 3/4 and then a 1/2 inch on the inside, and this is just a bulkhead fitting. So you push this up from the bottom. Once this bigger hole is cut out, push this up through this cutout for this guy, and then screw down on this top piece until they're tight. I'm going to put some Teflon tape on there to actually make sure it's a good seal. I'll tighten these down and put a little clamp on this before it goes under there. But basically this will be the port which I will put a bungee hose on, and I'll be able to use my pressure washer with the 8 gallons on the back of the Jeep for almost 10 minutes to be able to wash it, which is pretty much all I need for just a quick pressure wash to clean it off. So then it will then have the water on board for pressure washing, which I'll primarily use it for, or for emergencies if I was off-road and needed water for some reason to put out a campfire or something like that in dry season. But that is what's the project today. These are some of the bits of hardware that I got for it. Most of this I actually get from Ace Hardware. I really like the local Ace here that I have. And it's always good to support local, but buy all your brass fittings and all your stuff from your local hardware stores. And these, this is another bulkhead style fitting, which I'll tap into the bottom of it. The lowest point is just a low drain on it. So I have the low drain that I have to put in, the fill spout, and then the usage port. And these will all be right around the license plate area here. As you can see, this is actually just straight off of the vehicle like that. Getting on and off the bumper is kind of a pain in the butt. There's one of the bolts that's on the upper inside. It actually sits about here, but because this cavity is so small, it hits this if you're using a wrench. So even like this flat wrench was not sufficient. I ended up having to use this little combination for my DeWalt extension and angle, because it was short enough and the actual ratchet itself size was small enough to fit in that space. I had to loosen it kind of with that, but then this whipped it right off. But yeah, that's the latest Jeep project. And the tailgate, I actually just did some machining the other day. The tailgate table, as it comes up now, instead of this little metal piece being just tossed into this drawer, it has its own home. And when this arm is out, this holder for it will act as the point where I anchor this bar to the back of the tailgate, so it holds it out so it can't accidentally swing in. And then this here is the plate that comes off and then just goes right in here, and then the stove can set right on there, and then this will be the tether point. I already have the little, I think it's over here actually, look at that. So this little magnet here, I'm gonna put some kind of an extension between the two of them, but this little hoop will go over that peg, and then it will go over here so that I have a little arm that holds it tightly like that. And then the stove will be a little bit safer. So I have that. I also threaded this is a little holder so that the stove itself won't be able to fall off this bracket. It's just a little set screw. So when the little flaps of the legs fold down onto it, this will then go through and pin them onto it, and it won't have any ability to fall. But that was the project the other day. I didn't film this because some of these things are kind of a pain in the butt to film and do. I'm not that kind of a YouTuber. I'll just show you what I did, and it's really not that complicated. This is just, I clamped these two, I cut that piece out. I have a couple of blanks up here. I'll show you how to do it if you're interested. That is basically the blank, which I just needed the opposite of the shape of the actual T-bracket. This one was a little bit out of spec because I was doing it with a jigsaw. I don't have any machining tools, so this is a hand jigsaw that I cut this with. And then I tap it with a regular tap and die set. I've got metric and standard. I ended up wanting to build it with metric in mind, but they didn't have these types of set screws in the length and in metric that I needed. Those are a hex head or an Allen. It's just a set screw, so it goes through this material, and it's threaded. So I basically just figured out where I wanted this, and I put some clamps, heavy duty clamps, to this bar, and I just drilled the holes through the two materials with a piece of tape around the bit so I knew when to stop. And then while it was still clamped there, I threaded it so the thread gap between the two materials would be lined up for the little actual screw to go in, and then cleaned it all out, threaded it through, took off the clamps, and that's as tight as you can possibly get it now. It slides the thing in like extra hard, like you can't even let it fall. And then it's tapered so it just ever so slightly holds it. You can see the taper at the top there. Oh yeah, there, just a little bit. So you can drop it in the top easily, and then it'll tighten right down. But yeah, it's pretty easy. So it's not easy, but it's pretty simple, but kind of a pain to tape. But that's the newest addition to that. And this will be the newest addition to the rear. 8 gallons of water, which I'll use my little pressure washer with. Hose is on the way. I'll make a new update this weekend when I get it all together, and I'll be testing it out so the Jeep can wash itself. Self-washing Jeep.